Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I hope everyone's as happy to see a little rain as I am. Today is Thursday, January 8th, 2026, and it's 9 a.m. At this time, we'll have the commission secretary please call the roll.
Commissioner Irvin.
Here.
Commissioner Boatright.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Slade.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. And as we move forward today, I have a friendly reminder for all those that we are live streaming our open meeting for the public to view from their home or office. If you are speaking, please make sure you speak into the microphone and that the microphone is on so that viewers may hear what's being said. For the viewers who are watching online, we encourage you to subscribe to MoDOT's YouTube channel at MoDOT Video for access to these meetings and more. We're going to start our meeting this morning with a brief safety emphasis. Michael White, the Assistant Safety and Emergency Management Director, is going to share with us what we need to do in case of an emergency. Michael?
Good morning, Commission and Director Hassinger. Have just a few safety reminders for us this morning. In the event of a fire, the Commission, Director, and Commission Secretary will exit the rear of the room and out the back door in Conference Room 101 to the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. The audience will exit through the doors to the lobby and out the back building entrance near the loading dock, and then we'll proceed to the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. An alternate exit is down the stairs and out through the main entrance. Please walk up the hill on Jefferson Street until everybody is safely out the back parking lot and a safe distance from the building and emergency response vehicles. In case there's a small fire, there's a fire extinguisher in the rear corner of the room by the AV podium. I've asked Scott to retrieve and use a fire extinguisher if needed. In the event of severe weather, which we're not expecting today, but the rain is certainly nice, everyone should head to the center stairwell and go down to the lowest level possible. If we must evacuate the room, please take a moment to look next to you and see who's sitting with you, and make sure that upon your arrival to a designated safe location that your neighbors arrived also. If there's a medical emergency, most people in this room are CPR certified. Olmedo will call 911 and direct the emergency responders to our location here at 105 West Capitol Avenue. Chris has volunteered to administer CPR, and Becky will assist him. And then there's an AED in the hallway on this floor across from Conference Room 103, and Greg will retrieve the AED in the event of a medical emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize a special guest joining us today from Congressman Sam Gray's office. We have Sarah Graff. Sarah, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Don't see any other elected officials. Okay, I'm going to review the procedural items for today's meeting. I'll remind everyone that we have a public comment period, and we're pleased to offer this to every Missourian that wants to come before the commission to address an issue of concern. Any of you that would like to address the commission, please sign up before 9:30 a.m. A reminder, you will have 5 minutes for public comment, 10 minutes per subject. Next, I'll review our abstention process. There are commissioners that, because of land ownership, business interest, or lawyers who may represent clients that may have either some relationship to a matter before the commission or potential or actual conflict of interest to be considered or voted upon. The commission member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain from voting, to recuse him or herself from participating in the discussion on an agenda item. If an item is divisible by contract, call, project, or the like, a commissioner may specify that particular item and then still vote on the remainder of the agenda. This information is provided to the commission secretary by letter in advance of the meeting. The commission secretary will indicate the abstentions or recusals accordingly in the minutes of the meeting. Madam Secretary, have the letters been prepared? Thank you. Next is an action item as we consider the minutes from the November 6, 2025 and the December 3, 2025 meetings, and the special meeting on November 5 and on December 2nd of 2025. Those draft minutes were provided in advance. Does anyone have any changes, additions, or modifications to the minutes as they were presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve them as they are presented?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion would say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Next is an action item where we will consider items in our consent agenda. These have been reviewed previously and prior to this meeting. Does anyone have need to remove any other item for discussion or to abstain from them? If not, do we have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda items?
I move to approve the items in the consent agenda.
Been moved,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda would say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The consent agenda is approved. Next are a series of non-action items, including committee and board reports. The audit committee met yesterday, and giving today's report is Commissioner Slay.
Yes, good morning. The audit committee met yesterday to review the proposals submitted to conduct the fiscal year 2026 audit. The team identified one proposal as the most responsive to the request for proposal and best aligned with the needs of MoDOT and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. This recommendation will be presented to the MHTC in February for approval. The next audit committee meeting is scheduled for March 31st, 2026. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. Any questions for the audit committee chair? Hearing none, all commissioners are members of the legislative committee, and the commission's chair and vice chair serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee. Commissioner Boatwright will give today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Over 1,000 let me start again. Over 1,000 bills have been pre-filed in the House. Almost 700 bills have been pre-filed in the Senate. Over 400 fiscal notes have been requested. To say the least, it's already started off to be a busy session next door. So at the state level, the passage of a supplemental budget request for $642.7 million will be our primary focus this session. We've been fortunate to have all of our legislative agenda pre-filed in at least one chamber. This year, we have two safety proposals that we believe will save lives have passed this session. One is related to ignition interlock, and the other is related to child passenger restraint systems. Alcohol impaired driving accounted for 12% of the 2024 traffic fatalities in Missouri. Laws requiring all impaired driving offenders to install alcohol interlocks reduce the number of impaired drivers and fatal crashes by 16%. More than 500 lives could be saved each year if all states without such laws adopted them. There have been four bills filed related to ignition interlock. HB 1740 by Rep. Griffith, HB 1804 by Rep. Sharp, HB 2191 by Rep. Sassman, and HB 2352 by Rep. Gallick. Used properly, car seats reduce fatal injury by 71% for infants, 54% for toddlers. In the past 5 years, there were 14 children under the age of 2 who were killed and 58 who were seriously injured in traffic crashes throughout Missouri. For children ages 4 through 7, there were 24 fatalities and 197 serious injuries in Missouri over the past 5 years. There are three bills that were filed related to child passenger restraint systems. HB 2170 by Rep. Sassman, SB 1007 by Senator Berger, and SB 1257 by Senator Nuremberg. With regard to the Memorial Highway designation process, Rep. Sassman filed HB 2411, which will simplify the committee process and encourage memorial designations to go through the joint committee process rather than the legislative process. This provision will remove the requirement that the individual be deceased for 2 years and eliminate the 100 signature requirement to apply for the designation. It will also expand the Missouri Medal of Honor recipient fund to include honorees killed in the line of duty who served in the armed forces, law enforcement, or emergency personnel. The fund would be renamed the Fallen Heroes Memorial Sign Fund. While not part of our official legislative agenda, there is a proposal that we truly support that was filed by Rep. Gallick HB 1843 will remove the barrier to litter enforcement by changing the level of offense from a misdemeanor to a minor offense, making it easier for law enforcement to issue tickets and deter littering. All right, now we're going to switch over to the federal side. On the federal side, Congress reconvened this week as well. We anticipate their focus will be on the budget as the continuing resolution expires at the end of this month. Meanwhile, we will continue to prepare for the next federal reauthorization for transportation and are hoping that Congress can pick this back up yet this winter or in early spring. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes a lengthy report.
Well, thank you. And
Yes, sir.
here we go. So buckle up. All of those are important.
They are.
As my colleagues are painfully aware, I'm particularly interested in Representative Gallick's effort to crack down on those who would litter illegally our highways. When I came on the commission, this kind of became a bigger area of focus. And I don't know about you all, but when I drive around the state, we're doing a lot better. And I'm very proud. As I was driving up here today, I had to slow down and pull over because a MoDOT crew had their lights on and were picking up trash on the right of way. So Representative Gallick's bill would go a long way to helping us enforce existing law that call truck haulers, trash haulers who have been the primary contributor to this problem to be held accountable. So a shout out to her. Any other questions about the legislative report? Hearing none, Commissioner Smith serves as president of MTFC, and myself and Commissioner Baker are board members. Today, Commissioner Smith will give the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is no report this month. The next meeting is scheduled for February 4th.
Well, we'll be there.
Thank you.
Commissioners Boatwright, Hegeman, and I serve on the Emperor's Board, and today Commissioner Hegeman will give the report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there is no report for this month. The board will next meet on February 20th next month. So we're looking forward to that opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Boatwright will give the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety Executive Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we'll start out with some good news. Traffic fatalities in 2025 were down for a third year in a row. The final numbers estimated to be 3 to 5% less than 24 and 12 to 14% less than 3 years ago. So that's an improvement. Until we get to zero, it's not good enough. But this is the first time Missouri has experienced a reduction over a 3-year period since 2019. So we are making progress. While we are encouraged by this progress, the loss of life in Missouri roads remains substantial, and the coalition remains committed to working across multiple disciplines with partners throughout the state to keep the momentum going. With the rollout of our new strategic highway safety plan, Show Me Zero, we are looking forward to the implementation of both proven and new strategies that support the 5 core elements of the plan: safer people, safer vehicles, safer speed, safer infrastructure, and safer response. Achieving a 4th year in a row of reduced fatalities is a rare opportunity, but we have it before us. The work to get there begins now, and we need everybody to do so and help by buckling up and putting their phone down. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll kick it back to you.
Good advice, and thank you very much for that report. I'd like to take a moment now, a special privilege on behalf of the commission to highlight a recent achievement of one of our former colleagues, former commissioner and former chairman, Bob Brinkman, who was recently recognized with the 2025 Lifetime Achievement Award by the Progress 64 West Group. This is a group of regional stakeholders who advocate for policy impacting St. Louis and St. Charles counties. This year's theme was Champions in Action, which honored the everyday heroes, visionaries, volunteers, and other organizations whose impact rippled far beyond the headlines. His award was a celebration of his grit, his generosity, and the spirit of his service. In their words, with decades of visionary leadership, Bob Brinkman has shaped not only Skylines, but the spirit of collaboration and integrity that defines the region. His unwavering commitment to excellence, community development, and mentorship has left an enduring legacy across Missouri and beyond. The Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission is honored to recognize Bob Brinkman as a true champion in action, whose impact continues to build a stronger, more connected future for us all. On behalf of the commission, I want to extend my congratulations to Bob in hopes that he might be listening in for this well-deserved recognition. And I'd like to observe that in the time I've been involved with and in recent years with the commission, I don't know of a more impactful member of this commission than Bob Brinkman was. Much of what we see going on along I-70 today and elsewhere is directly related to his vision and his leadership. And so to Bob Brinkman, we send out congratulations. And it is an honor for each of us to have served with Bob. Let's give Bob a round of applause.
Well said, Chairman.
Yes, anyone else have anything to say? Okay. Next is a non-action item. We'll receive the director's report. Ed?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I have a few things to share with you, and really in a good segue, you talk about how Bob kind of got the ball rolling on I-70. Last month, our Improve I-70 team once again celebrated a milestone, this time on the Warrenton to Wentzville project. On December 9th, our team joined the project contractors, St. Charles County leaders, local elected officials, to cut the ribbon on the first 5 miles of the completed I-64 part of the project. And remember, we took the district's proposed project and lumped that in with the I-70 project so we could do it in a more efficient way. So another 5 miles of 3-lane each direction interstate pavement was completed. And a reminder, this is a part of the largest single project in the department's history. So another milestone, and we'll keep talking about milestones on those projects as they come up. But I wanted to share a video with you of the ribbon cutting here, I think, if we can play that.
The widening of I-64 from Route K to I-70 was funded in our state transportation program years ago. But it really made the most sense to combine with the overall Improve I-70 program and make this one connected project. That was much better for speed, efficiency, and really overall impacts to motorists during construction. To urge everyone to take a look around you, not only at these 6 lanes, and as you travel westward all the way up to I-70, or at least up to 364 today with new lanes. While you're soaking in this moment, think about how important this is and how this is really worth waiting for. I know a lot of people have talked for many years about the congestion on I-64, how critical it is for them to get to and from work, school, to go across the state. This is a major connecting corridor across the state. Please continue to be patient, as this is just one milestone amongst a much larger project.
That as MoDOT goes, so goes this county. We couldn't be here. We couldn't have 425,000 people today without everything that MoDOT has done. We couldn't do this bigger project, the 3rd lane on 70, without our legislators, first of all, approving the money, and my thanks to them. And we just want to continue to work with MoDOT, with the state legislature, with the governor's office and the commission to make St. Charles traffic move and make the population grow, and all move together to make this a great place to live and work. Thank you.
I know we're in St. Charles County, but this is a regional asset. Today, thousands of our region's citizens will be receiving an extra few minutes of leisure to spend with their families and enjoy their favorite pastimes by giving them a better commute. Thank you again on behalf of the members of Progress 64 West for the opportunity to be a part of this ribbon cutting. And thanks for all MoDOT's efforts to meet the transportation challenges of our region.
While we are here to celebrate the completion of this segment, I'd like to remind everyone that we still have work to complete the remainder of the project. Our team is working hard to complete the remaining segments with as little impact to the users as possible. Each day, we will have over 120 members of our team working to complete this project as quickly as possible. Our ask to the public and local leaders, as Eric mentioned a few minutes ago, is please continue to slow down. I guess Tom mentioned as well, to slow down in the work zone areas. Please help do your part to keep our crews as well as MoDOT project staff safe.
So just another brick in the wall, right? We keep going. I want you to look at that picture. I've never seen Steve Elman smile that big in a long time. So I think that was really nice. And I think I want to stress too, you heard it 3 times, but as we are doing all this construction around the state, whether it's on I-70 or I-44 or any of the projects that we're doing, we need the public to work with us and slow down in the work zones. We're seeing some improvement in that arena. Our partners in the Highway Patrol have worked really hard to reinforce that message, sometimes in a way that's not as pleasant, but we're making progress, but we just need everybody's help to do that together. So another milestone completed. On the same note, I wanted to give you kind of an update on how we're doing on our rural routes program. This has been one of the most popular programs that has kind of spanned the entire state from corner to corner. But it's really important to thank our legislators and our governors now for their support of this program. And one of our commissioners that was a former legislator was very pivotal in making sure that got off the ground on the first round of that was important to put the stake in the ground and say, hey, this is important. So we've done that now for 3 years in a row of $100 million. And then last year, another 20 million to go on top of that. So what that equates to is about 2,100 lane miles at 149 locations around the state. And that's just the latest progress since this was started in 2023. That was for the last year. So total 5,700 lane miles. And then we have a few more that you're going to approve and hopefully in this month's bid letting. And we're seeing that create smoother roads around the entire state. And the feedback has been really phenomenal on that. So we're going to continue that progress. And on the slide here on the map, I know it's kind of small, but you can see all of those roads that were improved. And it literally is in every corner of the state. So we're thrilled with how that's come about. And our contractor partners that are doing that work have done a phenomenal job of getting that work done. And we're really pleased with how that's going. So a little more to go. Certainly there's not as much in this year's budget as there has been in the last few years, but we've brought the overall condition of low volume minor roads to above 80%. And when we started, they were in the 60s. So that's a significant increase in condition. So really good news on that front. And then lastly, I'm really proud to share that the Missouri Department of Transportation has truly paved the way during the most recent Pave the Way, get it? Missouri State Employee Charitable Campaign. So working together, the department has pledged more than $110,000 to charities, and that's a 32% increase over last year, and it's more than any other state agency in the state of Missouri. This generosity really reflects our team's dedication to service. And let me give credit to the MoDOT staff that organized, promoted in every building in the state. We had this effort going on to either do payroll deduction for direct, deposit to charitable organizations. We had events at some of our buildings in our districts. And some of the creativity was pretty amazing on what our folks did. And I can't really thank our team enough, but We had a lot of folks doing that across the state, but I've kind of said, leadership matters. And so I want to recognize a couple people in the audience. So Kenna and Trish back there, stand up if you would. They were our statewide leaders for our charitable campaign and done a fabulous job. So thank you. And they had a lot of help. We had a lot of folks across the state working on that. But I think every time I came out of my office during that month, there was like Taco Tuesday and Ice Cream Wednesday. And I don't know, it probably was not good for my waistline, but it was good for charities. So, it kind of just really reflects positively on what our folks do, right? They provide service every day in their day jobs, and then they're willing to go above and beyond to look out for people less fortunate than them. And so I'm just grateful for a team that cares. So thank you. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Ed. Good work. Congratulations and thank you. Comment?
Yeah, if I might,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
please,
Thank you very much. Ed, thank you very much for the report. It's great to see the department get engaged in the charitable contributions efforts. It shows that we're clearly dedicated to the communities that we serve. I think I've always thought that it's very important to give back to the communities that you live in. And it's great to see our employees do that. And I also want to compliment the department on addressing the needs of the rural roads, the minor roads. And I appreciate that report. I appreciate the efforts we've been doing through the years to get that done. Certainly at one time recognized the need to do that, and I appreciate the department recognizing it and moving forward and working with the legislature to get that done. It has improved the roads and the attitude of the people, our communities, when we give them some attention. And we've done that. We've increased we've taken care of these minor roads, and it really is recognized and appreciated. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Dan. Other comment? I just want to take a moment to follow up on the director's comments about I-70. I don't think Missourians appreciate what a miracle is taking place right now. In September, I stood on the I-70 right-of-way between Blue Springs and Odessa to break ground on that stage, September. And by the end of October, I was driving over new concrete. It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable how much is getting done and how quickly it's getting done. It's saving the state a tremendous amount of money as we stay ahead of inflation. And we've become the envy of the rest of the state DOTs around the country. They cannot believe that we're doing such enormous work in such an efficient way on such a quick deadline, utilizing the tool of design build. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that, to think that you could break ground and 2 months later you're driving on new concrete is remarkable. So anyway, I just hope the public will understand that we are very committed to delivering these projects on time or ahead of schedule and on budget, and that we intend to make sure we fulfill the pledge we made to make these improvements that came with the General Assembly's appropriation of that money. So with that, we're going to move on to our department presentations. The next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Becky Almaroth, Chief Safety and Operations Officer, will update us on winter operations and the December response. Becky?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update today on winter operations. And in particular, I'm going to talk a little bit about MoDOT's training and preparation. I'm going to talk about that first storm of the season, including that December 1st response. And then I'm going to talk about our after actions after that storm, some of our lessons learned, and some of the areas where we're working to not only restore operations, but always continually improve. As you know, winter operations is a very, very large undertaking, one that we start each summer doing our planning. So each summer we start looking at our personnel levels, start getting our equipment ready, start looking at our plow blades, getting those ordered, the salt, the chemicals that we're going to need. And then we start looking at the number of new operators that we'll have that will need to go through our snow academy. I'm going to show you this real quick. One of the first items that we really start tackling each year is staffing. And this is from our MoDOT management system. It's a little bit busy whenever you look at the staffing sheet, but it's busy because we are pulling in a lot of additional resources, non-maintenance personnel, to jump in those snow plows each storm, and then also emergency equipment operators to try to fill in that gap. So it looks busy, but this is really kind of our heartbeat of seeing where we stand personnel-wise. We need approximately 3,400 operators total to be able to fill all those trucks for both day shift and night shift. We are making progress right now with hiring the maintenance employees, but for about the last decade, we've been hundreds of operators short of filling that gap, even pulling in those additional resources. Right now, I'm going to talk about two of those additional resources right now that are pretty important. First, our emergency equipment operators. These, I wish we could get 1,000 of them, and about a decade ago we did. That has been a dwindle in resources. Those are employees that just come in to plow for us. So those that might have CDLs and not be working on snow days, we pull in a lot of retired MoDOT employees to fill in that gap. But that 1,000, that 900 to 1,000 has dwindled to about 252 this year. So that's kind of a dying resource because we're competing for that same CDL resource. The second one are supplemental operators. You see a lot of different boxes on there. Those supplemental operators, again, those are our non-maintenance employees, like traffic engineers, construction inspectors, electricians, rail inspectors, just to name a few. We require those employees to plow snow, but on the back end of that, that makes recruiting for those positions, pulling engineers into those plows, makes recruiting for those engineering positions very difficult. This year we have almost 600 operators, or almost a quarter of our operators that are brand new and have zero experience. That means during the first couple of storms, they're still being trained. They go through our snow academy, but then we need to you can't get true full trained employees and operators until that snow actually falls. So that first couple of storms every year, it's going to take a little bit longer to clear those roads. And it's not uncommon to see snow plows going down the road with 2 operators in them, that they're doubled up for those training purposes. So almost a quarter of our workforce we don't have available during those first couple of storms. Talked about our maintenance, or the gaps in the staffing, but I want to talk about our maintenance staffing and some of the progress that we've made with that. We're working to increase our maintenance staffing numbers and restore operations. And if you remember a few months ago during Hamlink, our maintenance director came and showed that really in 23 is where we hit rock bottom. And that's when we had a deficit just from 2 to 3 years earlier of over 600,000 maintenance labor hours. So we are working really hard to try to restore operations. And just to put it in perspective, in 2025, and these numbers are a couple of weeks old, so we hired a few more since then, but we hired 735 employees in MoDOT. Of that, we only had a net gain of 50. So to put that in perspective, we hired that many, but about 700 went out the door. And the majority of those operators are those with 1 or 0 to 5 years experience. We just keep churning that. So even though we were given that additional almost 100 positions in July, and we continue to work so hard to fill those positions, the CDL drivers really, there's a lot of competition for those same CDL drivers. And I do want to put it in perspective, just that turnover, we have such an inexperienced staff. It takes years to really become proficient at plowing snow. And then we continually need to retrain. There's so much of an investment in that turnover. And then I do want to remind everybody, we had that partial market adjustment a couple of years ago to try to fill in that gap. That's why we see this increase. When we worked and fought for that partial market adjustment, our entry-level snowplow operators were below $15 an hour. As we stand today, we're still below 20. So that's a big challenge. And then I want to talk a little bit about our winter storm planning. We have multiple planning calls ahead of a storm. We hold the multiple calls 48 hours ahead, 24 hours ahead, and then we hold a situational awareness call every 6 hours during the storm. And this is one of our planning worksheets. And as you can see from this planning worksheets, our preparation calls include multiple departments from every district. Almost every division's on the call. We have the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Every troop is on the call. We have the State Emergency Management Agency and the National Weather Service, just to name a few. For small storms, it's not uncommon to have over 200 people listening in on this call. For our large storms, it is not uncommon to have over 400. So huge planning for every call. We do the 48 hour before the storm call because we handle every storm as a statewide response. So if it's not hitting a certain part of the state or those parts of the state, especially Kansas City and St. Louis, where the staffing is more of a challenge, we move resources just about every storm. So that 48 hours, that's to get an initial forecast so we can start moving resources. We then have another call at 24 hours. That's usually when the forecast comes into more of a focus. We know exactly what we're going to get. We make last minute changes based on that 24-hour call. And then I want to talk a little bit too, just about where we get some of those weather forecasts. So lots of planning that goes into it. But as a reminder, we are dealing with Mother Nature. And we are dealing with even our 48-hour calls. Usually when we have a 48-hour ahead of the storm call, the storm has not even hit the west coast of the United States yet. So Mother Nature likes to throw us curveballs occasionally. MoDOT does utilize multiple forecasting services, including the National Weather Service. National Weather Service has very graciously provided us staff on every single one of our planning calls. And they have a meteorologist that is embedded on the State Emergency Management Agency floor. So we have direct access to a meteorologist at all times during the storm. One of the other resources that we utilize is ClearPath. That's by DTN. This is actually an additional resource. This is a paid forecaster that we utilize. National Weather Service, we used to joke they would give us a forecast within an inch of the pavement, but they can't tell us or give us a forecast of what the precipitation is going to do when it hits the pavement. What are those subsurface temperatures? That's what we use ClearPath for. And since we utilize ClearPath and they're a paid forecaster, they are not shy about calling us in the middle of the night, any one of our 180 supervisors, to say, hey, there's a change in the forecast or there's an emergency situation. This year, we're also using BAM Clarity. It's a pilot that we're using because we're getting ready to just see what additional tools and resources are out there. So we're using them as an additional one. And then multiple other forecasts. I, just out of curiosity, pulled up my personal phone while I was sitting here. I have 15 weather apps on my personal phone. So if you don't think I'm a little bit of a weather junkie from doing this for 30 years, I look at a lot of different resources. So we always tend to prepare when we have all these forecasts coming in. They almost always come into alignment 24 hours out. Sometimes they don't, but we always prepare for the worst case scenario. So whichever one shows earliest, the most precipitation, that's usually the forecast we're preparing for. I do want to talk real briefly about MoDOT's chemical treatments. I just want to do a little clarity on this one. When it's appropriate, we always try to put a treatment down ahead of the storm. This treatment is called anti-icing. Anti-icing, when it's applied before the storm, it's usually a liquid de-icer, a salt brine, might have some beet juice in it. The intent of that is to prevent that bond or the sticking of the snow or the ice. That treatment ahead of the storm, it does work to melt a little bit of a snow, but usually no more than about ½ an inch. And that's if you get it down right before the storm occurs, especially in the urban areas. If we treat a day or two before, which we do sometimes, just the traffic wears it off and you might only get ½ an inch. So we try to get that treatment down as close to the start of the storm, a window of probably 5 to 6 hours if at all possible. And then the only thing on the backside of that, after you do the anti-icing, you do de-icing. So if you're getting more than about ½ an inch, you have to have the plows down. And that's just to knock the snow off. Now, we did a little additional planning this year. We talked about I-70 and some of those permanent work zones across the state. This was such a great just planning event that we held back in October. We knew we had those permanent work zones on I-70, on Interstate 44, on Interstate 55. There's a lot of phasing of those projects that's occurring even in the winter. So we're changing, we're opening, we're changing what the work zones look like. So we pulled together and held a workshop with Missouri State Highway Patrol, some of the local EMS, project leaders of each of those projects, and MoDOT leadership to talk about what this looks like for winter operations. We broke into regional groups. Great opportunity just for those regional leaders and those first responders, put names with faces and come up with a plan. We role played several scenarios, gave them scenarios to talk out. Here's what we're going to do if we have a crash in this location. Great time, several takeaways that we got even from local leadership. They wanted more resources put towards those permanent work zones this year, and that's exactly what we've been doing. Not only the permanent work zones, but if we have a crash in this barrier section, we put some additional resources towards the detour routes as well. I think on the first storm, our work zones handled well. And then I want to talk specifically about our December 1st storm and some of our winter storm planning for that. We held those 48-hour ahead of the storms call. That 48-hour ahead of the storm call occurred on Saturday, November 29th at 9 a.m. Ironically, we were in the middle of a storm that was already occurring. So we did our planning call as part of our situational awareness call. At that time, we were still planning on, with the resources out, I drove around after that storm. We had so much residual salt out. I joke about it and I said the roads are pickled right now. So a lot of additional salt that was just about every route in the state, major route in the state had salt on it from that storm. But we started looking at the forecast for December 1st. National Weather Service at the time, the forecast possibility of greater than an inch of snow north of 36. So this was planning to be a minor storm north of 36 at that 48-hour call. I had another call Sunday, November 30th at 2 p.m. Again, storm had tracked south a little bit. We were still expecting everything north of I-70 to be the hardest hit. St. Louis was expecting about 1 to 2 inches expected to impact evening commute. So MoDOT started heavily messaging. We're expecting the impacts to PM rush hour, especially in the St. Louis region. And then let's jump to the storm. We hold those situational awareness calls every 6 hours. The morning of December 1st, we started those calls. Another this is when the district emergency operations center started activating, the statewide emergency operations center, and SEMA, the SEOC floor, activated. So we were all watching the weather. We have a very, very important call that occurs anytime there's a storm. And the National Weather Service graciously host through their Slack platform. So the Slack platform, they give us a briefing of what the weather's going to be. These calls are almost always 3 o'clock in the morning. And I promise you there's about 100 of us from MoDOT that are on those briefings because these are when decisions are made. That morning, it is not uncommon. And I see the names because I recognize some of the media, some of those meteorologists that are on the news. That briefing, it's typically superintendents from school districts, local and state road crews are on that, decision makers, EMS, and meteorologists, and a lot of the large employers. So on that call at 3 a.m. in the morning, the upper right is what the forecast was going to be. So the forecast for the St. Louis region, it was between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. Remember, with any residual salt that's out there, a treatment ahead of the storm, 1/2 inch, we probably wouldn't even drop flaps. But during that call, we have to make decisions, and so does everybody else. So on that, you don't want to be the only school district that's holding school when nobody else is. Same thing with large employers. Everybody comes up with that plan. We ask questions to National Weather Service. And that morning, because the magnitude of the snow was going to be lower, a lot of people made decisions that it would be business as usual that morning, including my own mom. She went to cardiac rehab that morning, and it caught her a little off guard as well. We all made decisions. MoDOT followed up with a statewide call at 9 a.m., just our situational awareness call. At the time, National Weather Service gave their update. It had not changed much from that. And at 9 a.m., you can see that picture. This is our traveler information map at the bottom. It looks like the entire state is inundated with snow, but you can tell the road impacts just starting to hit the Northwest District and a little bit in Kansas City. It looks like the Jefferson City area is completely engulfed in snow, but we were being told at the time, and it was true to form, that's a lot of dry air. It has to overcome a lot of dry air. You can see it on the radar. It's not hitting the ground. And I was looking very, very closely. There was not a flake falling from the sky. So it takes a little bit of time, and it took an hour or so before we actually saw snow in Jefferson City. So making decisions off of that. And then the other important thing, it was about 9:45, and for about an hour after that, all of our forecasters, all the bells and whistles were going off. This is coming in faster than we thought it would, and we are seeing some of those snowbursts that could have been in there, and we were really, really getting inundated. So everybody was starting to see it at the same time. I was seeing it across the board. Got a phone call from our paid forecaster. We immediately started making adjustments to that response. For the St. Louis district in particular, they had their call at 8 a.m. They have a planning call ahead of the statewide call. Leadership made a decision at that point to send the night shift employees home because we were going to need them back for 7 p.m. and we did. We worked through the night that night. And I have been in that situation. I was the district maintenance engineer in St. Louis, and we were dealing with human beings. And they had already worked, most of our night shift employees, 12-hour shifts over the weekend. And you have to make that decision. I need you to go home and get some sleep. As difficult as it is, go home 8 a.m., need you back at 7 p.m. The maintenance day shift was still in because we worked 12-hour shifts, and they started additionally putting some treatment down ahead of the storm as they normally do. And then again, I talked about that supplemental help. They had made the decision at that time that all supplemental employees would report at 11 a.m. So we would be fully staffed for day shift at 11 a.m. And again, that's not a popular decision, especially when they see a forecast of 1/2 inch to 1 inch to pull our engineers out of doing their regular job to come plow. But the St. Louis region was, and that district maintenance engineer erring on the side of caution. They're dealing with, after that, we do in our statewide emergency operations center, we keep a lot of situational awareness calls, and we watch things very closely, including a couple of these maps show the locations of our trucks. The one on the bottom left shows also green means a truck's been on that route within the last 4 hours. You can see the statewide map is lit up in green. At this time, we started seeing just those snow bursts occurring. This is at 11 o'clock. You can see almost every truck is out across the state. This was also about the time you can see the radar that is enveloped the St. Louis district across I-70. We had some very heavy snow bursts of about 1.5 inches to 2 inches an hour that went across I-70, went across I-64. You can't, no treatment ahead of the storm is going to take care of that. We needed to have the trucks out with the plows down. Everybody across that region, across the state, started seeing the radar and the change in the forecast at the same time. And it felt like mass panic across large employers. I had, you name it, even within this building, we need to go. We need to go home because the roads are going to start getting bad. The school districts all released at the same time. Everybody made that decision. Once everybody, that panic set in, it mimicked a very, very heavy rush hour. And rush hour, you typically have several hours that spread out on. It seemed like at noon, everybody hit that funnel. As soon as that congestion occurred, our trucks were stuck in that congestion as well. Needed to be out there with the plows down. And then this being one of the first storms of the season, we have a lot of inexperienced drivers, not only internally within MoDOT, but you have school districts letting out with first-time 16-year-olds driving and people just not ready to drive on winter weather yet. So it was the perfect storm. So in summary on the weather, our 1.5 inch to 1 inch snowfall ended up being 3.8 at Lambert Airport, which was a new record for December 1st. That was a decent snow for us. But on a positive side, this is our road conditions. This is within 24 hours. This is about 6 hours off after the precipitation stopped. We had precipitation all through the evening, all through the night. About 6 hours after the storm stopped, though, we had almost 70,000 lane miles of traffic. We're almost clear, almost back to normal. And I can't say enough about that 70,000 lane miles of traffic. That's more lane miles than the state of Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska combined that MoDOT responds to. And then we do have the ability, obviously winter operations is not a cost-saving measure. We pull our MoDOT management system to see what the response to this storm is, and I can quickly tell you what the labor hours, the salt usage, equipment usage. For that December 1st storm alone, we had almost 700,000 miles driven, over 56,000 labor hours, almost 25,000 tons of salt, and we spent almost $7.8 million. Winter storms are very costly. And I want to talk a little bit about restoring operations. Back whenever I did in the St. Louis district as the district maintenance engineer, I had a tool at my fingertips that I highly, highly depended on. That was our remote weather information stations. So these remote weather information stations, and you can see where they're located by those dots on there. We utilize these because they provide not only the atmospheric data of what's fallen from the sky, but I can quickly get roadway surface information. So it's temperature of the roadway, not of the air. It's grip. So is the road getting slick? It's salinity, which sounds pretty fancy, but how much road or salt is actually on the road, and do I need to keep treating? I use this like you wouldn't believe. But back in 2018, we had to make a very difficult decision because of budget constraints. You need to continually maintain these systems. And then we had a contract with a contractor that fed us the information back. We had to terminate that contract and no longer maintain these systems. Very painful, took a tool out of our toolbox. Last year, as we are restoring operations, thanks to the commission and some of those decisions, we entered back into a contract to restore the 42 sites and add 12 additional sites. The upgrade started with the St. Louis district because we know that's where we have some challenges. Not only it's the last part, but weird things happen. Meteorologists will jokingly call it the arch effect, but it really is the confluence of the Mississippi and the Missouri. No storm goes as forecasted in St. Louis for some reason. They're usually less. They're usually less than what's forecasted. But having those systems back in St. Louis, those are just now online, and we're training our staff how to utilize those again. But that's one of those lessons learned that we had just looking at this storm. And St. Louis has already made the decision to add an operator in their emergency operations center just to monitor these stations. And the contractor's working to get them back online as you go west across the state. So that's going to be a huge addition to be able to see things that's not even forecasted as it's happening in real time. We'll be adding those in our additional emergency operations centers as well.
Becky, how long will it take to get those back to where they're useful for you?
We should have all of those back up. It's a little bit slow going because they have to touch each one of the stations, but I think the contract has them by this fall, having them all back up and running. So we'll definitely have them by next winter.
You'll have this tool back in the toolbox.
Yeah. Yep. And then one of the innovations, this one's kind of exciting. I saw this at a snow conference. We are trying to fill in that gap and figure out ways to clear and do more with less. So this is a Magna wing. That's actually a 20-foot wing. That, in addition to the 16-foot wing that you have on front of that plow, you can actually clear on a rural interstate both lanes of traffic and part of the shoulder. So you can do what would normally take 2 to 3 trucks with one operator, one truck. So we're piloting this year in the St. Louis district in Franklin County on Interstate 44. So excited to see what this will do. It takes a very experienced operator to operate one of these Magna wings. And then enhanced messaging. We learned a lot from this storm. We had typically focused on statewide messages, and we had a lot of speaking points that we would use for every storm, but we realized we need to be more specific for these storms, especially the first storm of the season. We need to let the public know it's going to take us a little bit longer because we have operators that are training. Hindsight's always 20/20, but as we watched that storm, we kind of knew there was going to be a gap in the precipitation, and we saw it. The roadways were really easy to clear. We would message moving forward, stay where you are, give us an hour or two. The roads are going to clear while we have this gap. That's one of the ways. Social media, we need to meet our public where they are and where they're getting their information, especially if you're stuck in traffic. They're probably on social media. Our Kansas City district has just been nailing it with some of their videos that they've been producing, really putting a human touch to our operators and giving more information. We're going to replicate that across the state. And then when drivers are in their car and stuck, we are putting devices, they're alert systems that actually communicate with with the navigation apps and your onboard navigation systems in your car. So we are working to get those outfitted, especially across our interstates, with those trucks that have the snow plows down. When the snow plows down, we'll be able to alert those drivers that there's a snow plow ahead. One of the most detrimental things that we can have is when a member of the public runs into one of our snow plows, you're blocking lanes and our truck's out of service. So we're working on enhanced messaging with that. And then final reminders, just that shared responsibility. We were all making decisions based on the forecast, but we need people to stay where they are to give those plows plenty of room. So in closing, multiple events that exacerbated the situation that day on December 1st, the top of which was just the forecast that we were going on. You're dealing with Mother Nature. She's going to throw curveballs. We've had a lot of conversations with National Weather Service that, we just didn't get the forecast right on that one. Everybody exiting at the same time and making that decision to go home completely clogged the roadway system. Our plows just couldn't go through. That inexperience that we have with the employees and our inexperienced drivers We're turning every stone that we have to try to fill in those maintenance positions so that we can have every truck staffed and really increase that skill level and that expertise within our organization. In addition, as is experienced in private industry, recruiting and retaining skilled personnel is challenging across every industry that deals with CDL drivers, but we're still very focused. And then after completing that after action of the storm, as we do with every storm, we found several lessons that can be carried forward into the future. We're going to continue to use new tools and innovations to fill in those staffing gaps. We're going to utilize those newly restored weather resources to provide in-field storm progression and add additional employees into those emergency operations centers. And finally, we're going to work on that enhanced messaging, including social media to better communicate expectations of the storm and then meet the public where they are. So I'm sorry that was a whole lot. I probably could have spoke for 5 hours.
Good.
I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Slay.
Apology accepted, but not necessary.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Becky, for your outstanding leadership and for the great work of the MoDOT team under very difficult circumstances. We all know that the public expect a lot out of you all and the work that you do. And under very, very difficult circumstances, that's fine. We understand that. You understand it. That's why you undertook this position and the job, and why the MoDOT team is here working for the people of Missouri day in and day out under very difficult circumstances. But it was very difficult circumstances, and a lot of decisions had to be made at different levels. And I just want to thank you for that. And it's the thing that I think the public that we all know doesn't understand the complexity of the problems. They just want the work to be done.
Yeah.
And I can say that under the circumstances, the team did an extraordinary job. And I want to thank you for that. And I just want to thank the entire MoDOT team for the work that they do day in and day out. Again, under very difficult circumstances. Any takeaways for the future relative to that incident?
Yeah, I want to
We can
reiterate.
talk about it somewhere if it's.
Yeah, no, it's really hard, and I will shoulder a lot of those decisions that are made. I wouldn't have made any different decisions in St. Louis that morning, just knowing the forecast. But we have human beings that are in those clouds, and they take a lot of the social media very personally. And I can't tell you the dedication of the 12 hours on, 12 hours off. We have such an amazing crew. Even though they're inexperienced, they're giving it their all.
Well, one thing to always know is there are a lot of people out there, and you hear from the ones that have they have an issue.
Yeah.
And the people that don't have the issue, they're not calling you up saying generally you're doing a great job. Keep it up. But you are doing a great job, and the MoDOT team's doing a great job. But it's always it's always a challenge, internal challenge on, hey, can we do better? Can we continue? Always looking at ways to do things better. But thank you for your work. Thank you for the presentation.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Hegeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Becky, thank you very much for the presentation. I thought it very well done, very informational, provided good explanation to where we were, what happened, and what's going on. I know some of my former colleagues in the General Assembly expressed some concerns about this event, and I think the chairman invited them to this meeting to come see this presentation. It would be great to do. I just curious if any of the legislators or any of their staff were able to attend. Is anyone in the audience from the General Assembly? That's unfortunate. Maybe we can provide this information to them. Like I say, it won't be as good because you presented very well, and your presentation means a lot. And I only wish that they could have availed themselves of the opportunity to come hear what's going on. But maybe we can get that information to them. They did express some concerns about it, and we invited them to come hear this presentation. It's a very busy day for General Assembly members. I understand that second day of session is pretty busy, but this seemed to be very important to many of them, and I regret that they couldn't get here to see it. But I do appreciate Congressman Graves' staff for being here, because I'm sure they had the concerns as well. So thank you, Sarah, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman?
Yep.
Yes, just some comments.
Thank you. Becky, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting behind the scenes look. I can hear the passion in your voice throughout the whole presentation. It shows, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
That you bring every day. 15 weather apps. Wow, that has to be a record.
It's my husband will say it's a mental illness, but
I can't imagine what your phone looks like, but I'm thinking we should call you meteorologist Becky or something like that, just
I need an honorary degree.
in honor of that, yes. All the technology, all the tools, the agencies at your fingertips and coming together, as you say, in this framework. There is technology to it. There is a lot to that. But removal of snow and ice is a physical process. And I'm reminded of that. We use these tools. They're not perfect tools. And then you get what you get. And you do this physical process. And I'm struck by that we have to remember that it is very difficult. And the communication with others, schools, large employers, everyone, is critically important. And I'm glad to see that it occurs at the level that you have described. And I think about those times when you're trying to get home from school or get to work, just get home or somewhere safe. And all these plows are out there, these doggone plows. But the main thing that I think of through your whole presentation is when and I'm sure you've all done it, you come upon a snowplow. And they're either doing pre-work, they're doing work in the storm as it comes, or it's after to remediate the damage. And every time, and this was before I became involved with volunteering in this capacity, but every time, whether it's a rush hour that's all of a sudden at noon, or it's night, late, I want to thank those guys. I want to go, by them and say, great job, or whatever. They can't see me though, because they're doing this big, important work. So thank you. And I hope that in your recruiting and retention efforts, all these people know that they are appreciated, that what they do truly matters. And what most of these people are doing is on top of everything else they do. Their day job. So main message for me is thank you. Let everyone know how special it is and that it's appreciated every time.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Vice Chairman Boatright.
Yeah, so thank you. I've got two things. First, for the folks that are in the trucks, I don't know if anybody in the room or anybody online has stepped into one of these vehicles. I'm a guy that has grown up on heavy equipment my entire life. From the time I was a little bitty guy to today. Stepping into one of these trucks is the most overwhelming thing that I've ever done in my life. So that being the first thing, thank you for the folks that do this. It's tough. It's tough to operate them with a clear roadway without anybody else on there, with traffic and the obstacles that are there. Really, really tough. So for that, thank you. Second thing, I'm also a nerdy process engineer guy. So when I see a situation like this and I see the feedback that we're getting to where we didn't meet expectations, my expectations are that we take a step back, look at what we did, and look at ways of getting better the next time that it comes. Your presentation laid that out so plain. And this is not, just so everybody knows, this is not something that we did just for this event. This happens on some of the biggest items we have in the department and some of the smallest. But it has to happen because if you don't do these things, you cannot get better over time. And the reason that we have a world-class organization, one that delivers for Missourians, is because we do the hard work, we do the hard things, and we look back at how we did things, how we missed, how we could have done better, and the next time that it comes, we do better. You touched on technology. We're in a time frame to where technology is changing daily, and staying on top of that and having the best resources at hand, showing us the tech that we're using. That's incredible. Keep that up. Those tools help. But my big takeaway from this is we missed expectations. We reviewed how we handled it, made some adjustments, and that has been typical over my 5 years on the commission. That has been the typical MoDOT process on how we handle when we miss expectations. And I am very proud of this organization and the team at striving on continuing to get better day in, day out. And I can't thank you enough for that, Becky.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. I think everyone but me has been heard. I want to echo the gratitude that's been expressed by my colleagues here. We, on behalf of Missourians, we have enormous gratitude. And I want every one of those operators to know how grateful we are. As was mentioned by Commissioner Hegeman, I received a letter on behalf of the commission from 6 members of the Missouri General Assembly on the Missouri Senate side, dated December 3rd, inquiring about the events of December 1st. Subsequently, the director responded in detail on December 10th. And on December 11th, I provided a policy response on behalf of the commission. And I'm happy that these representatives spoke on behalf of their constituents. They are elected to represent the people who are in their districts, and they were exercising their duty when they sent that letter, and we responded appropriately and quickly. On their behalf, I would like to follow up on a few things that was in that December 3rd letter, because I want them to understand that we took everything very seriously. The first thing I'd like for you to explain, I believe there's confusion about pre-treatment. I think that there is a little bit of a misunderstanding about that. In this instance, I understand there had been some pre-treatment, but timing is everything. Can you please provide our audience today some better understanding of how, when, and where pre-treatment works, and how, when, and where it doesn't?
Yeah, we don't typically call it treatment. It's a treatment ahead of the storm, or pre-treatment. It is that opportunity to get that layer down that breaks that bond between the ice and the snow. It is fantastic and works extremely well for very small storms. If we're just expecting flurries less than ½ an inch, we usually don't have to drop plows. We work very hard to try to get the timing correct on this, especially in the urban areas. In a rural area, you can put a treatment down. We put a little beet juice in it, so it's salt brine with some beet juice, and you'll actually see it on the roadway. It's sticky, so it'll actually hold for 2 or 3 days. In the urban areas with the traffic that just knocks it off, it just doesn't hold as well. We've tried things over the years of just putting rock salt down. Rock salt does not work very well to treat ahead of the storm because it just bounces and scatters off the roadway. Traffic knocks it off. Not very effective, but trying to get that window of 5 or 6 hours before the storm starts to get that treatment down, that is optimal to buy us as much time as possible. And as a reminder, we do compare ourselves to other states. It's really easy to compare us to other states like Iowa, Minnesota. They get a lot more winter operations. I'd give anything to have some of their resources, but when you only have 7 or 8 storms a year, we're not going to have those resources that they have. But we do actively participate with every snow state across the nation to get some of their best practices and ideas. And this is standard out of the snow and ice guide that the entire country uses, this timing and what you put on the roadway ahead of the storm.
Okay, I want to drill into that a little bit more. Specifically for the December 1 event in St. Louis, which we understand and acknowledge we missed, the weather forecast missed. And as a result, not just MoDOT, but all the public made decisions that exacerbated the situation by flooding the roadway just as we were starting snow removal. The convergence of events there were largely responsible for this. I want to address the question in the letter that's specific to December 1st about what did we do on pre-treatment that day and why?
That treatment ahead of the storm, we had crews out in the St. Louis district on Saturday and Sunday, actively responding to a storm. Whenever they put that plow down, they're spreading additional salt behind that plow. Those roads were absolutely, that salt Along with the snow, it's going to melt it to make it into a brine behind that. So after just about every storm, you'll see it's like, holy cow, I want to go to the car wash because our roads are white. After that storm Saturday and Sunday, we had that white layer of brine down on just about every roadway across St. Louis. We're dealing with the heavy traffic of that morning rush hour that it just wears a bunch of that off. So our crews were actively putting in additional treatment down a brine ahead of that storm so we could buy more time. Each one of those, on average, each one of our snow plows is assigned over 50 miles of roadway. So even one plow that's parked, we have to eat those 50 miles. So whenever the snow starts flying, one of those trucks might have 50 miles they're responsible for. And I know there's an expectation that, okay, there's an inch of snow on the ground now, get it off. But it takes, especially if they're stuck on traffic, our 1.5 to 2 hour cycle time in our urban areas, that's going to be bumped up to 3 to 4 hours and you start losing roadways.
So in point of fact, we did provide this pre-storm treatment. In point of fact, it was down, and the Monday rush hour, as it will do, diminished the effectiveness of the pre-treatment. And then as I understand it, because the weather forecast was off in its timing, the public hit the roads just as we were preparing to move the downburst of snow, and much harder to plow the snow when they're clogged with traffic. In short, is that kind of?
It's exactly.
Okay. Well, I think we all respect that the public, through their elected representatives, are going to express their questions. I think you've done a great job today answering those. In closing, how would you summarize, just in a soundbite or two, how would you summarize what did we learn from this and what will we do different?
It's really restoring those operations. This is the first storm of the season. It's always going to be the most difficult because we have 500 to 600 operators that aren't available because they're still training. Each subsequent storm, we're going to clear the roads quicker. That's just.
Seems like the weather forecast accuracy had a lot to do with this one, but they just missed it by a few hours. And when the panic hit, all the traffic hits and then can't get it. That's kind of what happened.
And we have another level. I couldn't include everything we're going to do. I would love to, but our emergency operations centers, we have all of them linked. And then we have our statewide emergency operations center, but the linkage to those, we hadn't figured it out exactly how to do that on Teams so that we have everybody across the state talking to each other at the same time. Michael White, that gave the safety briefing, has figured out within Teams how to link all of those now. So that's going to be an enhancement as well, that we're going to hear exactly from those that are in the field in each district as it's progressing. But we need that along with the storm really behaved as forecasted when it was on the western side of the state. So you're kind of expecting that, but you can't trust it. You can't trust Mother Nature and those remote weather information stations. You can't replace them. I mean, they're so valuable. That AI technology as well, that can say there are snowflakes. The AI technology and it's seeing snowflakes. We know it's snowing right then. Those are the things that just that situational awareness is going to be extremely valuable.
Well, I think Vice Chairman Boatwright said it well, that one of the things we're very proud of is the fact that the department is open-minded to look at a situation, to evaluate what we learned from it, and then to make improvements. And I hope the public who listened into this today takes some confidence in knowing that that's the approach we take. We don't just say, well, what we do is right and unquestioned. We learn from every event. I think your message on that was spot on. So with that, I give it to the director if he has any closing comments.
Yeah, I think most of it's been said, but I think it's important maybe to try to put it all together. The first thing that is obvious, I think, and we see it every day, is we've got a hugely dedicated team that does this. And Becky talked a lot about the people in the plows, but our partnership, there's a couple of gentlemen in the back corner there that wearing the uniforms. Our coordination with Missouri Highway Patrol is important in this endeavor. And we do have a less experienced group of operators than we've had in the past. That has an impact. And I'll get to that in a minute. But, that coordinated team We spend countless hours and literally tens of millions of dollars preparing for 6 events, maybe 20 days a year. So the amount of importance that we put on this is pretty unprecedented when you think about it, right? For 20 days a year, we're putting 50, 60, 70 million dollars, 3,000, 4,000 people into the mix to do this job. So we got a dedicated team that works on it every day, and way more than what Becky talked about. You know, the people that keep the traveler information up, our IS people are working overnight and through the weekends. To do this is a phenomenal effort. One of the things that I think is important that we have to reinforce, and especially at the beginning of the year, is expectations, right? A lot of times the public has an expectation that they can drive all the time during any conditions because we're that good at it. The fact of the matter is that when the information is good and the forecast is right, and we communicate that and all of our partners communicate that, we usually have great success because people make the right decision, right? Whether it's school districts or individuals or us, we make the right decisions at the right time and things go really well. In this case, the forecast was pretty off. And so people made decisions that weren't the right ones for that day. And we all kind of suffered the outcome of that. But during the storm, our team is out there in full dress doing it until we're done. And I think that's the other piece of the puzzle. We might not see a lot of project progress while the snow is falling. And you don't expect to, right? We're just trying to keep up. And a lot of times we don't keep up during the storm. But once the storm quits, we have probably unprecedented performance on getting roads back to normal. In general, after a storm quits, our major roads are in near normal conditions within 6 hours. For a normal storm, we got a foot of snow, that's not going to happen. But she showed you the picture of 24 hours. Really, it was probably 8 hours after the storm quit, 6, and the roads were near normal. So when people are not in our way, we can make things happen. We get to the minor roads and people complain about that a little bit, that we don't get there as soon as we could. But usually within another 6 hours, we've got those near normal. So our team works really hard at it. My biggest takeaway from this event, in addition to the things Becky mentioned, is it shows how important the commission's support of restoring operations is. And it's about the people. It's the people in the trucks. It's the people that are making the decisions. And the level of experience of those people is of the utmost importance. Technology can do a lot for us, but having people that have been through multiple storms and know what's going to happen, there's no better thing to be more effective in this arena. And so when I look at the number of new operators we have, the biggest thing that we can do long-term is retain those. So next year, they're a 1-year experience operator, and 2 years from now, they're a 3-year experience operator, because that's what really makes the difference on being, just average to being good at this. And so we've got some work to do, and we know it, and we're committed. I will tell you the letter that I sent to those legislators, I've gotten one response to go meet with them. I'm going to go do that next week. And maybe I'll get some more, or maybe I'll get a few of them to join up and we can talk about kind of what we talked about today.
Well, thank you. Thank you to the entire department. Tom, on behalf of the commission and the people of Missouri, I hope you will communicate to your operators and those who jump in when needed. I hope you will extend to them the enormous gratitude we have, and express to them we understand sometimes the public may be frustrated. It's understandable, but notwithstanding, we all are very, very grateful for their service. Okay, is there anything else any member wants to do on that? If not, The next item on the agenda is an action item. Sarah Kleinschmidt will present the bid. Sarah?
Good morning, Chairman Erdman, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. For our December 12th, 2025 bid opening, MoDOT received 94 bids on 24 calls. We recommend the following to you today. To award all calls to the lowest responsive bidder. Call C06, located in the Kansas City District, is a border bridge shared with Kansas Department of Transportation. We have a 50-50 split agreement with them, and KDOT does have concurrence in that award. These are our recommendations to you today. Any questions?
Okay, any comment or question? We, of course, reviewed this yesterday. Any comment or question for Sarah? Ed, do you have any comments on this offering today?
I'll wait till Sarah gives you the update.
Okay. All right, then with that, do we have a motion and a second to approve this item?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the secretary will call the roll.
Commissioner Erdman,
Yes?
Commissioner Boatright,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Heckman,
Aye.
Commissioner Slade,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Okay, Sarah, budget report.
All right, today's awards are for a total of $70.1 million, which is $6.3 million under the budget, and this is based on all projects including contingencies. Today's awards result in a state fiscal year 2026 award total to date of $1.149 billion, which is a savings of 9% or $113.2 million under budget on $1.262 billion worth of work. Again, this is based on all our projects, including contingencies. This also includes emergency or special lettings, projects let by others, and our design build projects.
Very good. Any questions for Sarah on the budget? Okay, Ed.
I wanted her to say that number, right? $1.4 billion worth of work. We're halfway into the year. And that's pretty incredible. You know, she mentioned that we had 3.9 calls per bidder, and our contracting teams across the state, our design consultants, our MoDOT team have really upped the game on, you know, tremendous amount of work. And there was some question when we were talking about all the legislatively designated projects and all this stuff that's coming towards us. Would we be able to deliver that? And would we be able to do it efficiently? And I think that the track record is the answer is yes. Our contractors have stepped up. They've figured out how to build the capacity. All of our folks that have to put the plans together in the private sector and at MoDOT have done that too. So we have biddable documents. And here we sit with halfway through the year, $1.4+ billion of work under contract. Pretty exciting.
Very good. Well, Sarah, thank you. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, this is an unprecedented time for transportation in Missouri. Missourians have never seen this much attention to their transportation network. Granted, that we're catching up for maybe some deferred decades, but this department is delivering for the Missouri taxpayer. There's no question about that. So thank you very much. Appreciate all your work.
Well, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Brenda Morris, Chief Financial Officer, will provide a financial forecast update. Brenda, floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. Today, I'll be discussing the first step in our process for developing our spending plans for the department. On an annual basis, we prepare a financial forecast. The forecast is an estimate of what revenues and expenditures we anticipate having. This forecast covers a rolling 5-year period. The forecast I'm discussing today covers fiscal years 2027 through 2031 and only covers revenues, expenditures, and capital investments for roads and bridges. We start with the actual cash balance at the end of fiscal year 2025. For our projections, we use historical information as well as information from third-party sources. The information in the financial forecast is then used to develop the appropriation submission and the department's allocation of resources for operating, as well as the targets that are provided to transportation partners in the development of the statewide transportation improvement program, or the STIP. We will be discussing some of the unique characteristics of this forecast. The last couple of years has resulted in additional revenue and bond proceeds being part of the available resources that the department has. Most of these come in the form of one-time funding. I'd like to touch briefly on a few of these. First, during the 2023 session, the governor and the General Assembly approved $2.8 billion in resources to fund the Improve I-70 program. $1.4 billion comes in the form of bond proceeds. The first issuance was conducted in November of 2023 in the amount of $390.2 million. The second issuance was conducted in November of 2025 in the amount of $517.3 million. We anticipate one final issuance in fiscal year 2028. The other $1.4 billion comes in the form of cash. The general revenue was deposited into a fund held by the Office of Administration, and the funds will be transferred into the State Road Fund as the Commission awards various contracts. This forecast includes $1.2 billion of transfers to be made, and all transfers will be completed by the end of fiscal year 2027. Also, $136 million of general revenue will be appropriated annually for debt service associated with the bonds and has been included in the forecast. Second, during the 2024 session, the governor and the General Assembly followed the same model that they used for the Improve I-70 program and appropriated $577.5 million for the Forward 44 effort. Of the total amount, $213.75 million of the general revenue gets deposited into a fund held by the Office of Administration, and the funds will be transferred into the State Road Fund as the Commission awards those contracts. Of this cash, a little over $200 million still needs to be transferred into the State Road Fund. An additional $363.75 million of bonding authority was provided with debt service to be paid from general revenue. Bond proceeds are not to exceed that $363.75 million. Annual debt service payments are not to exceed $44 million. And the term of any bonds issued should not exceed 10 years. The bond issuance for this effort is planned for fiscal year 2027. During the last three sessions, in addition to the funding for the Improve I-70 program and the Forward 44 effort, the General Assembly designated and funded several other projects with general revenue or budget stabilization funds, a general revenue lookalike. These projects include, but not limited to, low-volume minor roads and improvements on US 65, US 67, and Interstate 49. Lastly, while not revenue, bond proceeds are an additional resource. This forecast includes Amendment 3 bond issuances in 2026, 2028, 2030, and 2032 to utilize all the revenue deposited into the State Road Bond Fund. We're going to talk about each of the three primary state revenue sources. On these graphs, we'll show the actual revenues from 2013 to 2025 and then compare the forecast we are presenting today to the forecast from last year. The blue line is the actuals, the red line is last year's forecast, and the green line is this year's forecast. For motor fuel taxes, excluding Senate Bill 262 revenues, fiscal year 2025 actuals were $6.4 million less than what we projected. As you can see in the graph, motor fuel taxes have had quite a bit of variation since fiscal year 2020. In the first 6 months of fiscal year 2026, we've seen motor fuel taxes, excluding the Senate Bill 262 revenues, coming in higher than our projections. Moving forward, we still believe vehicles with greater fuel economies and one powered by alternative fuels will offset increases in vehicle miles traveled. This forecast includes an annual decline of negative 0.2% for 2026 and beyond, which is the same assumption that we made last year. The overall impact is $32.2 million less in this forecast compared to last year's forecast because actuals were less than our projections. Senate Bill 262 passed by the General Assembly in fiscal year 2021 and signed into law by the governor in July of 2021 increases the motor fuel tax by 12.5 cents over 5 years, 2.5 cents each year. The last increase occurred July 1st of 2025. This graph shows the projections related to Senate Bill 262 motor fuel taxes. Similar assumptions were made for this revenue source as the rest of motor fuel taxes. This slide shows the revenue net of refunds and the constitutional distributions to cities and counties. And as you can see from the lines, there is very little difference from year to year. I'd like to talk a little more about the assumptions related to the Senate Bill 262 refunds. Actual refunds have ranged from a low of 0.37% to a high of 0.77%. The last 2 years, the actual refunds have been around 0.5%. So that is the assumption we've used in this forecast and is the same as last year's forecast. The overall impact of Senate Bill 262 revenues is $11 million less projected this year compared to last year's forecast. For motor vehicle sales taxes, fiscal year 2025 actuals were $9.9 million or 2.1% more than projected. And while we have seen a slight decline in fiscal year 2026, primarily in the first and sixth month, we believe people will continue to purchase vehicles. And for this forecast, we started with fiscal year 2025 actuals and grew them 3% for fiscal years 2026 and beyond. This is the same assumption as last year. The overall impact is $56.6 million more than last year's forecast. This graph shows the motor vehicle and driver's licensing fees were $4.9 million less than what was projected in 2025. And as you can see in the chart, this category has been pretty volatile. For the first 5 months of fiscal year 2026, this revenue source is continuing to come in below the amount projected. And for this year's forecast, we started with averaging 4 years of actual, so 2022 to 2025, which is $319.6 million. We are projecting a 1% growth rate for fiscal year 2026 and beyond, which is less than the 1.5% we used last year. The overall impact is $72.5 million less in this forecast than last year's forecast. In this graph, we compare how the state revenue projection for all state revenue in this forecast compares to those from last year's forecast. The red line represents last year's forecast. The blue line is this year's forecast. In addition to the 3 primary revenue sources that we discussed in detail, this chart also includes the interest we earned on our monies deposited with the state treasurer and miscellaneous revenue. Miscellaneous revenue includes proceeds from the sale of excess property or the sale of excess equipment or used equipment, as well as reimbursement from entities that we do joint projects with. So think about the MoDOT cost share program. The difference between the 2 lines is $3.4 million less, so very close to what we estimated last year. Federal revenue includes the federal funds for our construction projects, as well as federal funds we receive for preventive maintenance, design work, construction engineering, statewide planning and research reimbursements, and federal funds that are passed on to local entities. Again, we're showing a comparison between this year's forecast and last year's forecast. The comparison shows the timing of federal funding changes a little bit. And overall, this year's forecast contains $38.9 million more federal funds than last year's forecast. This graph shows the picture for all resources available for state revenues, federal revenues, and Amendment 3 bond proceeds. This graph does not include the one-time funding made available for by the Governor and General Assembly, like the funds for I-70, I-44, and then the General Assembly designated and funded projects. This year's forecast has $45.9 million more in resources available than the previous year's forecast due to the timing of contractor payments and its impact on federal reimbursement. In this graph, we include all revenue and disbursements except for the Improve I-70 program, the 444 effort, and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. The red line summarizes the revenue, the blue line shows the disbursements, and the green line shows the ending cash balance of the state road fund. Disbursements include the items approved by the commission as part of the fiscal year 2027 budget submission, including the $7.9 million to provide a 2% adjustment for all employees' salaries and wages and increases to employee salaries and wages based on tenure, $5.3 million to hire an additional 100 safety and operation positions to help restore operations and meet those customer expectations like we just discussed a little bit ago. $1.4 million for asphalt and concrete repairs, $1.5 million for various maintenance activities that improve safety and provide support for the World Cup, $3 million for fleet to help defray the cost of inflation. Now, these items that will be discussed, these are the items that will be discussed during session. In addition, the following items have also been included and will be used as a starting point for future budget authorizations. A 2% cost of living adjustments in fiscal years 2028 and beyond, retirement contributions of 37% of personal service in fiscal year 2026 and 33% of personal services in fiscal year 2027 and beyond. Medical benefits include $1.9 million increase for fiscal year 2027 for retiree benefits and $900,000 related to the additional positions. And then medical benefits for fiscal years 2028 and beyond include 9% growth. A 2.5% growth rate for expense and equipment for fiscal years 2028 and beyond. This chart also includes the disbursements for the construction program. We're going to go in a little bit more detail on the next few slides. Overall disbursements increased $151.2 million in this forecast compared to last year's forecast. The main reason for the increase is increased expenditures for the construction program. In order to maximize the investment level, the forecast relies on deficit spending. The amount being disbursed is greater than the revenue coming in. The cash balance in the state road fund is expected to decline from $1.7 billion at the end of fiscal year 2026 to $687.5 million at the end of fiscal year 2032. The fiscal year 2032 ending balance is slightly elevated because of the planned bond issuance during that year. The average deficit spending for the 2026 to 2032 time period totals $116.8 million a year. We need to maintain an adequate balance in the state road fund to respond to fluctuations in receipts and disbursements and for unanticipated expenditures like disasters. This slide shows the additional investment for the Improve I-70 program, the Forward 44 effort, and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. This includes any bond issuances if warranted for those programs and the cashing out of any awards made for these projects. This slide shows a comparison of all contractor awards for this forecast compared to the previous forecast. This includes all road and bridge funding. When comparing the two forecasts shown on the graph, the amounts are $34.5 million more due to the timing of contractor awards. Just a reminder, contractor awards is the amount that is included in the STIP and is the amount identified at the beginning of the project. For this forecast, we identify when those awards will actually result in cash out the door. The contractor payments will lag slightly behind the contractor awards. So this slide shows a comparison of the contractor payments from last year's forecast to this year's forecast. Taking a little bit different look, this pie chart shows where all of the funding included in this forecast comes from. By far, the largest amount is federal funds at 36%. Of the three primary state revenue sources, motor fuel tax provides the most at 20%. And you can see that huge investment of other state resources with the yellow slice at 14%. The distribution of revenues is similar to what we saw last year. Here is the pie chart that shows the distribution of disbursements. The largest portion is for the construction program at 42%. The next largest category at 25% is the operating budget, which includes all the state road fund, personal service, fringe benefits, and expense and equipment expenditures. This is our investment in the customer service we provide Missourians. Again, you can see that yellow wedge at 16% for the Improve I-70 program, the Forward 44 effort, and the General Assembly designated and funded projects. Some of the highway user fees are appropriated to two other state agencies, the Department of Revenue and the Missouri State Highway Patrol, in accordance with the Missouri Constitution. That is 10% of disbursements. And lastly, debt service at 7%. This distribution is similar to what we saw last year. The financial forecast is just one piece of the puzzle. As mentioned earlier, the information in the financial forecast provides the basis for the development of the targets used to select projects for the STIP and to develop the department spending plan. I think we're going to hear from Lance next on that. While each serves a different purpose, they are interconnected. And we're not asking for any approvals today, but as the other items, the STIP and the budget, are prepared and presented to the commission, we will seek your approval at that time. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Commissioner Baker, do you have any comments here?
Of course I do.
Of course you do.
This is what I live for.
Yes.
Brenda, thank you for the presentation. This is critically important, obviously, balancing the inbound revenues and outbound expenses for the forecasted periods, not to mention the shorter term cash flow management that you alluded to as well. It's critically important, and that's, I think, obvious. Thank you for the graphs and the explanation at this high level. The graphs seem easy enough to understand, I believe. But I know if we clicked on any of those graphs, there would be countless spreadsheets and models and variable scenarios that impact your projections. And I wonder how many like financial apps you have on your phone. Because I cannot help but be reminded of the fact that to be effective and successful in what is done in the department requires the ability to predict the future.
And I have really great staff that support that effort.
It takes a team, because I know you, although you've distilled this for us, there is so much that goes into this, and it's constant because there is variability that may impact this mid-year and would necessitate a pivot. So all that said, thank you for the work. It's the kind of thing that you check the box, but then you're always looking at it and looking for those future periods. And it's particularly important, I think, now because of the things we've been talking about here, the unprecedented level of capital investment made across our state. And the numbers are very large. So if we miss the target by just a few basis points, it actually does matter, probably more than ever. So anyway, thanks to you, the team, everyone that puts this together, and the experts and sources of data that we rely on. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Other comment or question, members of the commission? Brenda, I wonder if we could go back to the slide that shows that contractor awards. Yeah, that one. I spoke at the AGC conference with MoDOT down at the Lake of the Ozarks. I see Lynn is here. And at that meeting, I talked about that peak that you see there, where we hit peak contractor awards, and that as a result of that peak, the contractor community has deployed an enormous workforce that's skilled, that's trained, that's good at what they do. And that's valuable. That is very valuable to our state, to have that trained workforce and the equipment and the investment in equipment. And we're grateful to the contractor community for ramping up to meet that peak. But at the same time, I mentioned that this wasn't going to last forever. And that graph shows what I was trying to illustrate in my remarks, that because of the generosity of the General Assembly in the general revenue projects, that peak was made possible. But as we finish those projects, inevitably that's going to come down. I would like to open a conversation with the contractor community and others about what could we do as that inevitable decline starts, as the general revenue projects start coming off the books. What could we do to retain as much of that capacity as possible? I think that is an important long-term consideration. We don't want to go back to where we didn't have that contractor capacity, probably not going to be able to sustain it at the rate we had this summer. But over time, it would be nice to retain as much of that as possible. The other thing I talked about in my remarks at the AGC MoDOT conference was we have in our normal funding, we have static revenue sources. The fuel tax primarily, it's based on a per gallon fuel tax. And as a result, when inflation goes up, our revenues do not go up. It's really a function of fuel consumption. And we know fuel consumption is going down because of fuel efficiency, EVs, and that sort of thing. And as a Missourian, I am concerned about the loss of the purchasing power of our dollar. The dollar we get from the fuel tax is effectively going down over time because its purchasing power is declining as inflation rises and the source of the revenue doesn't have an inflationary consideration. I think these are two very important matters that I'm going to invite the industry to join us in a long-term conversation. It's time to start talking about it now. We don't want to wait. We've got a couple more years of pretty robust contract rewards and spendings, but it's time to talk about it now and to prepare the public for the reality that the surge we've had in this work will over time start coming to an end. And I think that's important. The other thing I wanted to talk about with the public that's listening in here today is just to simplify to some degree what you said. We had the chance to drill into this yesterday at a workshop in some pretty laborious detail. But for the working public, there are basically two kinds of projects going on. Those that are funded by the fuel tax, the motor vehicle sales tax, and other fees, the normal state road fund money. And then there are the general revenue projects, which have been historically generous. And those two pots of money have paid for this unprecedented surge we've seen. The road fund money is going to stay reasonably flat, maybe some decline over time, but the general revenue is going to go down. There's no doubt about that. The general revenue is going to go down. That is a reality, and that's something we have to deal with. The good news is we have bonding authority and commitment from the state to do the I-70, the Forward 44 project. Those are being paid for generously by the General Assembly through their appropriations to the debt service for that. We issued some I-70 bonds late last year, and that's well on its way to being completed. The Amendment 3 bonds that we will consider in April are more for the normal operations, and those too are important. We'll, of course, be interested in the details about that. I'm particularly interested in the term of those bonds. I think we've learned here that long-term bonds tie our hands, and we're going to be very desirous of doing like we did for the general revenue bonds, the I-70 bonds, to have short terms as much as possible. As you start preparing for that consideration of the Amendment 3 bonds that we'll look at in April, of course, we will be very interested in being as prudent and as short-term as possible, while at the same time maximizing the use of our cash for projects. I hope some of that was helpful to people. Sometimes I have to simplify things so I can understand them, so I share that with others. But I hope people can understand that these things are inevitable and we're going to manage them as best we can. So with that, we'll give Ed the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think it's just important, this is the foundational piece that drives all the other things that we do. So, you might think of it as charts and graphs, but as Commissioner Baker said, it's a lot of money. And we have to project it because our revenue sources aren't ones that we go ask for, give me some money for. We have to figure out what it is. And we don't think in terms of a yearly budget. We do a yearly budget, but we're always thinking about a horizon that is 5 and 10 years out because the project delivery schedule requires some stability in that so that we can know what we're doing, so our industry can know what we're doing. And even our internal operating budget, we're thinking 3 years out, right? 3 and 5. And so when we're forecasting, Brenda's team is looking at 10 to get to the 5 so that we know what we can expect. Because that's just what it takes to do the complicated work we do. And so can't underestimate how important this part of the process is. And we do it every year so that we can take into account those things that change. The one thing that we're really focused on this year is the federal bill expires at the end of this year now. And we're very interested to see. We've made some assumptions, and we think they're good, but we are really watching that because that'll have a huge impact on what we do, especially on the capital program. So good work that we've done, and we'll talk about what's next here, which is pretty exciting too.
Okay, well, thank you. And Brenda, again, as I've said many times, your financial team is as good as I've seen.
Yes.
And I've been in the private sector for 30 years, retired recently. I don't know in the transportation industry that I've seen a better, more accurate, and better presented financial team than what your team has produced. So on behalf of the commission, thank you and your team for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Lance Taylor will provide a statewide transportation improvement program development update.
Chairman Urban, Commissioners, Director Hassinger. I am Lance Taylor, Transportation Planning Director, and I'm going to provide an update on the statewide transportation improvement program development process. Transportation planning, we're very fortunate to be involved in a lot of efforts that help drive the organization or impactful to the citizens of Missouri. None more important than the statewide transportation improvement program, or what we refer to as the STIP. This is a total team effort. It involves staff all the way across the state, throughout the divisions, all coming together, doing their part to pull this document together. Our district planning managers in the district really do a lot of that heavy lifting. The district staff really have those difficult conversations about what can move forward when we go through this process. And we're very thankful for all of their effort. For my team, Amy Binkley and Monica Duncan lead the STIP group, and they do a great job of shepherding all of us through this process to come out with this document. But Amy has moved on, and she is leaving our team, and I just wanted to express my sincere gratitude for her hard work, passion, dedication, leadership to this process over the last several years. The statewide transportation improvement program is just one piece of a lot of pieces that come together to establish what transportation is going to look like as we move forward. In addition, there's the high priority unfunded needs list. There's the long range transportation plan. Our partners at the metropolitan planning organizations have metropolitan transportation plans and transportation improvement programs. All of this comes together, works in concert, and helps drive improvement in the transportation system forward across the state. Of course, here in Missouri, we use the transportation planning approach of planning framework. It's a nationally recognized award-winning approach to transportation planning. It's focused on bottom-up decision-making, ensures that local voice is heard throughout the decision-making process. Of course, it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have great partners, and we have great partners here in Missouri. We have dedicated, passionate folks committed to understanding the needs and wants of their citizens, those at the regional planning commissions and the metropolitan planning organizations. We are blessed to have them as part of this process, and we are very grateful for their effort. The long-range transportation plan is intended to establish a 25-year vision of what transportation would be here in Missouri. Involves a lot of stakeholder input and engagement of the public. And the current one has 5 goals: to maintain the system and services we have today, to improve safety, improve modal choices, to invest in projects that drive economic growth and job creation, to improve reliability and reduce congestion on the transportation system. It should be noted that Right now, we're going through an effort to update the long-range transportation plan. Brittany O'Connor from my team is leading an effort that's working in concert with Levi Wood from Multimodal, looking at the state freight and rail plan. And we hope to bring you an update on that very soon. High priority unfunded needs. We started this process in 2019, adding specificity to the buckets of needs that were generalized in the Citizens Guide. It really allows us to put local locations and descriptions and costs to what the needs are around the state. The current list includes $11.4 billion worth of needs. 5.7 billion of those are worked through the districts through prioritization efforts to be able to ensure that local voice is in those as well. This has been a really great communication tool to both to be able to show the needs, to be able to demonstrate, have conversations about those needs. And we've been very fortunate with the investment from the legislature, from the governor's office, from Senate Bill 262, to have an opportunity to actually have funds to be able to move the needs from the list into the STIP. And we've moved over $6 billion to date, just from 2019 on. Now that list works in concert with the STIP development process. It's basically a large cycle where we update the high priority unfunded needs list. We go into the STIP development process. That list educates the STIP development decision making. They identify needs that could be removed from that high priority unfunded needs list and translated into projects in the STIP. And then we update the high priority unfunded needs list. So the cycle continues. Anytime we talk about the STIP, we like to talk about the MoDOT's financial planning model, as Brenda just more eloquently than I described this process and how it works. The financial forecast is really the foundation of the financial planning model, allows us to know the funds available for the budget and the funds available for STIP programming. Once we have those funds established, that allows us to generate our targets that we distribute to the districts. We start with the available funding. We strip off safety funds, commit those to the safety bucket. Then we take off our asset management needs, and what's remaining is the system improvement dollars. It should be noted that because of the vast array of asset management needs, some of those system improvement dollars are pushed back up that waterfall to be used for asset management. Once we have those breakouts, we're able to use the commission approved distribution formula, which takes into account system size and usage, crash history, employment numbers, and population numbers, to be able to then distribute those funds in each category across the state. And that's when the district staff can really start in earnest to work on this development process. And it's always important when we talk about STIP development to talk about asset management. Asset management is the number one long-range transportation goal, taking care of the system and services we have today. We have a huge investment in the system that we have, and it just makes sense to make sure that we stay dedicated and committed, continually taking those funds necessary to make sure that we maintain the system. I was reminded just yesterday of how blessed we are to live in this nation and how blessed we are to live in this beautiful state of Missouri. And it's really a blessing for me to be able to be here and kind of lift up this terrific team that I work with across the state, with our terrific partners, all focused on moving transportation forward to improve the lives of Missouri citizens. So what's next? We have no action for you today. After the financial forecast presentation, we'll be able to distribute those targets. Then the planning staff around the state can start really working with our partners in earnest. We get those needs turned into projects. We get scopes, budgets, and timelines established, and then we'll hopefully have this all pulled back together in May to come back to you and present a STIP. With that, I would take any questions or concerns.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
Not a concern, really, Lance, just this community collaboration is so important to see what people across the Missouri want. You know, we can't sit here and decide what they want in Northwest Missouri, Northeast Missouri, but I appreciate your efforts and your team's efforts to work to make sure that we get done what the people across the state, in every corner of the state, want done, and look forward to seeing your draft STIP in the spring. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Other comment or question? Director Hassinger?
Yeah, this is exciting. You know, this is the kickoff of developing the 5-year plan that we bring to you as a draft in a few months and then as a final in July. And that's always a really busy time for our program development people and our planning partners and our planning team. So the amount of work that's going to happen in the next several months is going to be immense. And I too would like to echo what Lance said about our team upstairs. Amy has led that effort for several years now and has done a fabulous job. We're going to miss her, but you got other people that are going to step up and do that just as well. So we're thrilled to see that. One thing that I wanted to highlight to the commission as it relates to our effort to try to improve our relationship with the legislature. You know, legislators have every opportunity to engage in this process, but a lot of times they don't. And so earlier, really it was late last year, I sent a letter to every legislator outlining the process and asking them for their input directly to us so that we could engage that in the process. Not to mean that it has any higher priority or lower than anything else, but just to make sure that we're being cognizant of that fact. And we're getting some feedback from that. I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, but it's a start. So just another opportunity to get feedback into the process that I think we'll see how that goes this year and probably continue that as part of the process.
Very good. Any other? Thank you very much. Appreciate that, and good luck as we move forward with the planning process. We've reached the time for our public comment period. Members of the public who have not scheduled presentations before the commission may speak to the commission on transportation-related issues by signing in at the registration desk by 9:30. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person and 10 minutes per topic. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed in for comment? Okay. The first person who's registered is Mr. Daryl Winiger, Vice President General Manager of Capital Paving. Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. Chairman, Commission, Director, it's kind of a unique opportunity that really led me here today. One of the more unique projects on next week's letting is an improved I-70 Project 5 piece. We've worked diligently, and I just wanted to echo the words you used earlier about the miracle that I-70 has and the fortunate nature that any contractors have in this state to really compete and go out and deploy capital and grow our business and invest in our equipment, our plants, significant in that regard. So I really come with a message of appreciation and all that. However, just recently, and this is something that's just a small piece of it, but we've been working with I-70. The Project 5 has had probably 6 months worth of work and public information and the team that's been available. So we've had off and on public and informational things, and the life cycle assessment is an element of the valuation on this bid. We're a pretty fortunate contractor. We look at it with all available pavement types that Missouri looks at: concrete, asphalt, whatever it is. We did ask, and I think on our behalf, we expected with the interest rates rising, the 5-year average in the calculation on the life cycle assessment would have very potentially moved that difference, that delta, when we look at life cycle assessment, into a more favorable position for all bidders, whether it be concrete and or asphalt. Look, yesterday afternoon, we were just surprised when MoDOT published a specific dollar amount on the life cycle assessment cost. It was 40 and 50% higher than the expected number. So really what that did for us was it could change our total estimate 5 and 10% upwards as far as participating and competing. And in this particular project, it doesn't have that same benefit that the design build methodology brings to the table. This one's a hard bid project. So ultimately, I think just ironically that the commission meeting was today, that we were scrambling as a contractor, the partner. Director, you referred to us as partners, and we feel the exact same way, and we're fortunate. So I'm not here to really do anything but maybe ask, when the life cycle assessment came out late yesterday, it could impact our bids over 5 and 10% on a engineer's estimate of $140 million plus on the project. 1 week ahead of the game, we fully expected that, and all conversations for 7 months really led us to believe that that delta would go down, not exponentially go up. So as we react and try to, we've called Alan with AGC, we've worked with Dale with MAPA, and we're just trying to understand. So we asked for, hey, how did you calculate this? Capital was successful on I-44 by looking at alternate pavement designs and a different methodology to value the pavement styles. And there's a consistent and predictable mechanism. I mean, really, Travis Kessner, who was a MoDOT employee for many years and a design engineer, state design engineer, we're blessed that he's been in-house to help really educate us as contractors on the complexity and all of the things that this entity has to deal with, from the funding side, the procurement side, but the build side. Boy, it rattled us big time yesterday to see that exponentially change on such short notice, out of expectation and out of consistency. So ultimately, I know that this commission deals with the largest scale items that are available, but this is an enormous project. The movement of that kind of dollars this close to bid day, I think on behalf of all contractors, what I just wanted to ask is that it be considered to move that back so that the contracting community can really take a look and understand the formulation behind that life cycle cost assessment, because it's impacting our ability to put confidence in an enormous low bid on short notice. So overwhelmingly positive relationship. We've enjoyed doing business here. We really appreciate the relationships that we have and the partnerships that are available. So ultimately, that's all I was doing. And it was ironic that you have a commission meeting today. We got a big surprise last night. We struggled last night. We stayed in the office late just trying to understand it. We were a part of the delay in that releasing that information because we expected it to go down. So to be hit with that surprise really rattled our confidence as a contractor on a significant bid. And that's ultimately what I wanted to share.
Well, thank you for taking advantage of the being here today. I'm not aware of this, but
Sure.
I'm going to ask the director to prepare a full briefing to us that we might review at the February meeting. I'd like to know more about this. I'm
Right.
sure my colleague, we will get a full briefing on this at the next meeting. Ed, do you have anything you want to say just in brief?
Yeah, I think this is something we do pretty routinely. I will granted, it's probably pretty close, right? I will acknowledge that. One of the things that we did on I-70 was we made a kind of a commitment to industry early on that we would do some bid build work. And I think that was an opportunity for maybe contractors that are not in the design build world to have an opportunity. And that this is really the first one of those that we have planned out of a couple more, I think. So, yeah, appreciate the feedback. We'll consider that.
And just possibly considering some time to understand and see the details behind the calculation so all of us can understand it when we just want confidence when you're doing a little bit. So, but appreciate everything.
Oh, no,
the
thank you
state's
for
doing.
bringing that to our attention.
Great.
We're definitely going to get educated on this issue. So,
Okay, fantastic.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you just give me a snapshot of where the number was, what it changed to, just
So
scale?
in an October public meeting with the MoDOT and industry, so it had multiple contractors all on the call. The estimated number was around $8 million for a current calculation using the life cycle cost analysis. We hoped that with the rising interest rates, it runs like on a 5-year average, that would potentially, because interest rates have been coming up, what it would do would be, it would lower that discount rate or minimize the delta between use of concrete and the use of asphalt. So $8 million was the number. If it changed.
Specifically on this project.
On this project. We even estimated it could go down to 7.5, potentially with the consistency with the way it's been interpreted on previous projects. We were informed yesterday the numbers were about $11.9 million for a delta plus ads for shoulders and on. It's almost a $13 million delta versus an expected 8 or lower. So when you're talking $140 million, you're at 5-6% just right there on trying to evaluate the concrete side of things as well. It raised everything.
Sure.
In our estimate, and it just shook our guys a little bit because this is big. This is one of the largest projects MoDOT's ever bid, I think, in a traditional bid build methodology. So it's a lot of time and a lot of passion to make sure that we're understanding it as cleanly as we can and putting the best bid we can.
Yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from.
So
I appreciate you taking the time to come explain it to us.
Between 8 and 13 million dollars was a surprise 1 week before the letting.
Sure.
We expected it to go down.
Right. Totally understand.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking time to do that today.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Join
everybody.
us in February. We'll probably have some more to say about
Sure.
this.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Next, we have Arnie's here today. Arnie Dienhoff is here today to provide some public comment. Welcome.
Good morning and Happy New Year to all the commissioners. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienhoff, State Public Advocate. First of all, as you all know, I'm about transparency. So I'd like to know, and I believe Missourians deserve the right to know, what the cost to taxpayers is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for yourselves with Argyle Catering Company. I saw their truck out in the back of the building and they're catering your lunch. I'm sure they probably catered your breakfast and probably your dinner last night. So I'd like you to release that information. I'd also like the commission to publish via the website commission packets, not after the fact, but before the fact. Bids, contracts, memos, financials, staff recommendations. The state legislative session is underway. All the committees are all transparent and upfront. They disclose that information. So do county commissions. So do cities, villages, townships, fire districts, ambulance districts. They publish their packets 3 to 7 days before the meeting. You publish it after the fact, and that's wrong. Per chapter 610.021, 610.022, 610.023, the revised state statutes, I am making a verbal request, one for the letter to legislators by the directors mentioned in this meeting a few minutes ago. The letter that the director sent to the General Assembly about the December 1st storm on December 9th, I believe, and the General Assembly legislative report read by Commissioner Boatwright. I'm also requesting the January 5th audit committee at 5:30 p.m., the closed and open meeting packet, January 7th, 1 o'clock p.m. workshop, the open and closed meeting packet, and today is January 8th at 9 a.m., the commission meeting packet in its entirety. And I also asked for the director response to the legislators for the storm at the beginning of December. Why do I have to keep asking? As I said, every county commission and other political subdivision are mandated by state law to disclose these packets to the public in a timely fashion. Do I need to go to the legislature this season and ask the legislators to draft legislation, another bill to force you to do it? I hope not. There should be no secrets here. Why are there secrets after the fact and not allowing testimony before you as the commission? I-70 safety zones again. It's vitally important. Driving in controlled construction zones, 55 speed limit posted. There needs to be more troopers, more sheriff's deputies, more municipal enforcement. We have an obligation to protect employees, workers, contractors, and inspectors. My experience this morning driving here is cars passing me like I'm standing still doing 55 miles per hour. Semi-trucks doing 70, 75, 80 miles per hour in a windstorm and a rainstorm this morning. Irresponsible drivers, Tractor trailer incident happened in Wright City because of the tractor trailer not paying attention. And that happened coming here this morning. Yesterday, a Missouri State Highway trooper, 28-year-old trooper. Here's some pictures. On Missouri Highway 6 in Northeast Missouri, that state trooper was involved in a head-on collision, is facing serious injuries. A 62-year-old woman lost her life and 6 others were injured. We need to pray for those individuals and their families. The Wright City rest stop, westbound I-70, the men's restroom, and the entire property needs major overhaul. This facility is an embarrassment to our state. The men's restroom I inspected this morning is in terrible, deplorable shape, and the floors have not been mopped in a long time. There needs to be a scrub down, replacement of vital components. Concrete is in deplorable conditions, falling apart, major disrepair, and a liability to our self-insurance fund here at MoDOT. The use areas are closed because of liability. There needs to be renovation and replacement of this westbound rest stop, and I'll be inspecting the eastbound rest stop in Wright City. There are objects in the roadway. There needs to be daily patrols at the 180-mile marker, westbound I-70. Somebody needs to pick up a large piece that's sitting in lane number 1. There needs to be oversight, expectations, supervision, leadership, pride in MoDOT, accountability, and delivery of services. In December, the city of Dardenne Prairie, population 15,000, and bill number 2565 for $25,500 plus expenses at a minimum has hired Tom Dempsey, the owner, and also the owner of First Capital Advisors, who also represents the city of Lake St. Louis and St. Charles County to the tune of over $250,000 of taxpayer money to lobby this commission. The agreement is a joke, hogwash of an agreement, and a total waste of taxpayer dollars. I'm requesting MoDOT be responsible, and it's a responsibility of city administrators, local elected, mayor and aldermen to come here, and our 12 state reps, 3 state senators in St. Charles County. Tom Dempsey is demanding an exit and entrance ramps for I-64 to Town Square Boulevard, Missouri Highway N, Hanley Road. I do not trust this lobbyist who is secretive, provides no reports to the public, little to no return on investment. And it's about ensuring traffic regulations, MoDOT policies, fiduciary responsibility. And if you cave to this lobbyist, Tom Dempsey, and his demands, communities and cities throughout Missouri will want and demand equal treatment and on a fair, even keel playing field. Do not give in to hired guns. And just to finish off, while Mr. Dempsey is living off of our dime at our loss and our great expense, I'm opposed to hired lobbyists coming in here and demanding special rules and special considerations. It's not right. And I ask you to disregard any of his requests. This has been going on for years. They want special treatment, and they're paying him a waste of taxpayer money. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
well,
Chairman.
thank you for your testimony. We have made note of the maintenance things you have observed, and we'll look into those. Commission Secretary has made note of your information requests, and we will provide those. You can have my copy of the director's letter about snow. We don't withhold anything. You can have that. Appreciate your time today. Okay. Typically, at the end of each meeting, we like to provide each commission member with the opportunity to share any concerns or comments they may have. This is an opportunity for each commissioner to kind of sum up their takeaways from the meeting. And as always, I'll start with Commissioner Baker on the right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to everyone who helped in preparation and delivery of the reports today. It was really all about the department. We didn't have any really outside guest speakers. So a good way to start the calendar year. And I'm just reminded that there's no more important time than now when we have the greatest amount of work being done, the greatest expectations behind that work, and the impact of the foretelling of the future that most of our speakers were alluding to this morning. Learning from the past, learning from our shortcomings in those cases and the mistakes that are made and getting better. The things that we've all talked about are important. We're never going to be perfect, but we want to get better as we go on and learn. And that's what the department is really all about. So thanks for everyone that makes that possible. I'm excited about what is to come and really looking forward to the balance of the year.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Commissioner Slay.
I'll just add to the commissioner's remarks and just, I am continually impressed with the talent and professionalism of the MoDOT team throughout the entire organization. The presentations today had everything to do with, safety and dealing with weather and other things and the financial components. This is a highly complex organization, and it is, there's a lot of individuals at various, doing various positions within the organization that really serve the public in a way to help make not only traveling through our state safe, but also, it does a great job in improving communities throughout the state of Missouri. So I just want to thank the entire team for all the work that you all do, and certainly very proud of the work. And I know that you're going to continue, and we're going to continue working and supporting you and your efforts as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Slay. Commissioner Hageman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a pleasure to be here today and hear all information. Appreciate Brenda's and her team's forecasting out there. It gives us a good basis to work from and look into and know how to plan. It's the fundamental building piece of all of it. So thank you for your team and your efforts. I know a lot of time goes into that. I appreciate the department continuing to work with the legislature on the low volume roads and the legislative designated projects. Certainly like to see those continue move on, and it is due to the graciousness of the legislature that we were able to do some of these. And I appreciate our General Assembly and the governor's office in empowering us on the I-70, but also the other projects out there that we're able to do, and really appreciate that relationship and look forward to continuing working with them. Ed, Director Hassinger, I appreciate your working with the legislature and attending to their concerns as best we can. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I believe it's been a good meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, the Dean of the Commission, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, just echo what the mayor, Commissioner Slay, and Commissioner Baker said. I agree 100%. Becky, your report where you at? There you are, was extraordinary. I mean, it just explained everything, and it's $7 million just on that little old snowstorm. So hope and pray we don't have many more this year. So, but anyway, I appreciate everybody. It's good to see Lynn here today, and everybody. Arnie, it's nice to see you come today. We missed you at the last meeting. So anyway, that being said, I'm going to yield back.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chairman Boatright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Long meeting today. Covered a lot of different topics. Big takeaways for me: if you're going to continue to get better, you have to address when you don't meet expectations. This organization does that as well as anybody as any group that I've ever been around, and that's why this group continues to get better. We talked about the financial forecast. The chairman laid that out very plain. Fortunately, in the state of Missouri, what our system looks like is ultimately up to us as the citizens. We talked about the STIP today and that process of our regional planning partners and how that's put together where we don't have to worry about lobbyists and those things, because this is a bottom-up approach that is put together by the locals, by our metropolitan planning organizations, by our planning organizations and leaders throughout the state. We're very fortunate to have such a system, because that makes sure that the resources that we do put into the ground are focused into the areas that are important to the folks in Missouri. That's a big deal. The forecast financially, again, that's up to us as citizens of the state. We chose a few years ago while we had excess dollars in the state of Missouri to invest those dollars into our transportation system. That was a choice. We're fortunate that that choice happened. Great leadership by the legislature. One of those legislators being here on the commission now. But that was a big deal for the state of Missouri. We had been in a 30-year period to where we did not invest. All at once investing, it's fun. It's fun to deliver. It's fun to put the infrastructure into place. And we're going to have a team at the end of this that can flat deliver. If we choose as Missourians to continue, and whatever that framework looks like, to continue investing in our infrastructure, that ability will be there. But that's ultimately up to the folks in this room and the folks that are listening to this and Missourians as a whole. That's up to us. How we invest and what we put into our infrastructure is totally up to us. Trying to think if there's anything else. Mr. Chairman, I think that's it. I continue to be impressed by the staff. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the work that you put into this. You go above and beyond. It's incredible. Very proud to be on this commission, to be a part of this fun period in Missouri transportation, to where we are moving the needle quickly. Sometimes we move really fast on things. And I appreciate you coming today, sir, and giving us a snapshot of the difficulties that you encountered, because it's a big deal. Those dollars, when you're getting ready to put together a big bid like you're putting together with your company, it's good to know that. So thank you for that. And I appreciate having a dialogue to where we can have those open and honest conversations, because if we don't, we get into a position to where we can't work together. And we're fortunate here in this state that we do work together on these things. So I'm thankful for that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll give it back.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Boatwright. Well, let me just close a couple housekeeping things. Kansas City District Engineer Greg Ballone was here a little earlier. I don't see him here now, but I understand later this week he's going to provide some badly anticipated information about the shutdown 169 northbound bridge in Kansas City. As a Kansas Citian who uses that a lot myself, I'm anxious to hear what his report will be. But for those listening from the western side of the state, I'm led to believe that we will be learning MoDOT's evaluation and response to the closure of the northbound 169 highway bridge just north of the downtown airport. Also, appreciate all he and his staff are doing to get ready for the upcoming World Cup. I believe 650-some thousand visitors are anticipated, more than the population of Kansas City itself. So we want to look our best, and the entire statewide MoDOT team is helping Greg and the district office do that, and we're grateful for that. I see Dale back in the back of the room. You've got a letter from me coming soon about the matter you and your constituents brought to my attention. Everything that's brought to this commission's attention is treated seriously, and we will respond, and you have a letter coming from me shortly on that. Let me just kind of elevate then a little more to some more broader policy things. Earlier, the commission or the director talked about how we're refocusing on operations. I want to give him full confidence that this commission is committed to restoring those operations. The legislature will have the opportunity to consider our request for an additional 100 operational people. The work that we talked about, removing snow, mowing grass, removing dead animals, is not done by artificial intelligence. Those are real people. It requires real people to do that. We are firmly committed to restoring the operational capacity of this department that was compromised in past years due to the necessity of meeting capital requirements. As someone who comes from the rail industry, I have a great appreciation for the importance of funding operations and maintenance, and we are committed to that. We are at the beginning of the legislative session, and there are a lot of bills out there, and many of you will be following those. Won't be surprising to learn that I'm watching in particular those that would propose to change the way this department is governed. I don't know what more we could do to demonstrate our sensitivity to the public and our commitment to delivering tremendous value to the people of Missouri under the governance structure we have. I hope other Missourians will join me in appreciating the constitutional protections that this department and agency has. I personally, as a Missourian, am very committed to that. I hope others will see that we're able to do things that other departments are not able to do because we have the constitutional governance that is set up today under the Missouri Constitution. Other legislative things will come up. We'll keep you advised, but there are things that we're supportive and there are other things that maybe we're concerned about. And I want to close on a bigger picture issue. It's the thing I mentioned earlier. It is the assemblage of a tremendous infrastructure, equipment, and personnel to do this important work by the Missouri contractors. That development of capacity has been tremendously valuable to the people of Missouri. To the extent we can, I want to focus my remaining time on this commission to see how we can take advantage of that. I want to make sure that we figure out long-term solutions to the corrosive effect of inflation on our purchasing dollar. And I'm glad that we have restored and we have a healthy relationship with the contractor community. If we can do better, let us know. I know you will. But I'm very proud of the fact that we have a strong partnership with that important community. With that, much to be celebrated in Missouri. Let's not forget that. Much to be celebrated. We're doing very well. Thank everyone for their time. And I'll let you know that our next meeting is scheduled here, same bat place, same bat time, February 4. I hope you'll come and we'll look forward to seeing you then. With that, I'll take a motion for adjournment. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed. This meeting is adjourned.